Sooner Nation, Longhorn fans, welcome to episode 175 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Oklahoma, and the University of Texas. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. Kevin, it is an act of God that we are here today, because I should have been on the golf course watching the Norman North Junior High girls roll to another victory. But alas, the skies opened, the thunder rumbled, and the lightning lit up the sky, canceling the tournament and allowing you and I to be together to discuss Oklahoma and Texas. Let me tell you, the weather is the only thing stopping these girls from winning. It's unbelievable. Last week, they've had two tournaments so far this year. Hopefully they only have one more on the schedule, so hopefully this gets rescheduled. They are winning at an average of 29 strokes to the nearest team.
That's impressive.
It's unbelievable. And most teams have 5 players. They get to drop their worst score. We only have 4 players, so we have to roll with whatever we shoot, and it doesn't matter.
Good stuff.
It doesn't matter. So my point is, not getting to play today really sucked. Another thing in the category of things that really sucked this week, Val Kilmer, rest in peace.
R.I.P. Legend.
Passed it away. Okay, I've got my list. Can you give me your top 3 Val Kilmer movies? Are you a Val Kilmer fan? He was an actor. Like, that was his job, and he would do I was like looking at his movies. And there's so many I didn't even know were even existing.
Okay, we'll touch on this quickly, but I 2 come to mind for me: Top Gun and Tombstone.
Yeah.
I mean,
his role in Tombstone made that movie.
Correct.
Like, it made the movie.
Yeah.
That's number 1. Number 2, he wasn't afraid to play second fiddle. He played second fiddle to Tom Cruise and did it really, really well. Did it in Tombstone too, even though he took over the movie. I also go way back to Real Genius. You ever seen Real Genius?
I have not. Mm-hmm.
That's old school. That's like in the 80s, Star Wars type technology stuff where he plays a smart dude. And I always like the same.
Yeah.
Where he plays all the different guys, but not because he was in it, but because of his co-star, whose name is escaping me right now. Who is his co-star of The Saint? Oh my gosh. What is going on here? Elizabeth Shue. How do I forget that name? Oh my gosh. So really, I didn't really watch it for Val Kilmer at all. I watched it for Elizabeth Shue, but that's not the point. He was really good in all of them. Listen, he was a really good actor. It sucks, but alas, he had a weird life though. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Right?
Yeah, just a unique guy for sure.
He's a unique dude, but rest in peace, Val Kilmer. I think we agree Tombstone. All right. Let's talk some Oklahoma football, Kevin. That's what we're here for. I'm going to start with this question for you. Last year, Oklahoma went 6-7. You've seen bits and pieces of John Mateer, right? Highlights from when he was at Washington State. You saw his mobility. You've seen his arm talent. If John Mateer is on the team, he's the quarterback instead of Jackson Arnold last year. Does that change the record for you at all?
Maybe, because I think
not with Ben Arbuckle and not with any kind of upgraded receivers, just John Mateer.
Maybe so, because what you probably get with him is fewer mistakes. Because remember, you didn't need dynamic quarterback play last year. You just needed someone who wouldn't screw it up. You had too many mistakes, too many turnovers, especially that Tennessee game. That always comes to mind. If you just play average offense, you win that game. And that could have flipped your season completely. So you may not be the likes of Texas and some of those other schools like that, but maybe the South Carolina game is more competitive if you're just not turning it over. And I know that was Michael Hawkins, but still, if you have John Mateer there, if you're just able to run plays without giving them the football, you don't have those losses.
So you're saying a 2-win difference?
Yeah,
you're
I think
saying
1 or 2 wins.
maybe,
Yeah,
maybe a 2-win difference.
correct. Yeah, fewer mistakes.
Okay. I tend to agree with you. The Tennessee game was such a debate. And don't forget the Missouri game.
Yeah,
Don't
for
forget the
sure.
Missouri game.
Yeah,
Now, granted, the defenses who gave up the lead, but that turnover was so bad in the Missouri on that Missouri final drive. I
yeah,
mean, it was just so bad. One of the worst. I still contend one of the worst turnovers in Oklahoma history. It was so awful. I even think about the Mississippi game, Kevin,
yeah,
because Ole Miss was a dynamic offense last year, and Jackson Dart was a top 3 or 4 quarterback in the league. But defensively, on the road, we're really holding our own against Mississippi, and we, especially in the second half, couldn't do diddly do on offense. Like, couldn't move the ball. There was more turnovers there. We remember there were turnovers in the middle of the field. I'm thinking like the second quarter.
yeah.
So there's just a number of options. Okay, so let's fast forward now to 2025. We do, in fact, have John Mateer, so we don't have to play the what-if game once the season begins. Also, we're going to have a completely revamped skill positions in terms of wide receivers. I want to focus on wide receivers for the first part of this podcast, just for a minute, and kind of just do a deep dive on who is competing for spots, who we expect to see there, and more importantly, what it means for Oklahoma, what it means for Mateer, and how it can improve it last year. Let me remind you who played wide receiver for Oklahoma last year. 2024. J.J. Hester, Brendan Thompson, Jaquiz Petaway, Zion Kearney, Jacob Jordan, and Deion Burks. And maybe a little Ivan Carry-On, but I don't really remember Carry-On much outside the bowl game.
Yeah, he would just pop up here and there. I mean, I remember
the problem-
playing garbage time in the South Carolina game, once the game was already out of reach.
The problem is they all popped up here and there because none of them made any plays. Burks was fine, except that he ended up being hurt most of the season or in and out of the season and stuff like that. They're outside of Burks. Let's just face it, that is a awful lineup for an SEC wide receiver core.
For sure. Yeah, you're not going to win very many games with those guys out there.
So fast forwarding to 2025, when you look at the 2 deep, or in this case, I've actually got the 3 deep here, according to ourlads.com, OURLADS.com. In one wide receiver spot, Jaden Gibson, starter. Slot, Deion Burks, starter. And then they've got the other wide receiver spot as Isaiah Stenya, the transfer out of Arkansas. Am I saying that right? Stenya?
I think it's Satania.
Satania. You're right. Oh, there's the A. I'm sorry. I can't even read my own writing. Okay. So we got a transfer out of Arkansas. We got Jaden Gibson. And we got Deion Burks, a transfer out of Purdue. Let's just look at those 3 for a minute. What can you tell us about those 3 by themselves and then compared to what Oklahoma was fielding last year?
Well, I mean, with Burks, we kind of know what you get here. Classic slot receiver, but with speed. And it's important, though, to have at least 2 competent guys on the outside, because if you do, that opens him up to be matched up on a safety and opens up that slot fade route that he's really good at, because he can beat most safeties deep, especially if it ends up being man coverage. But that's why it's important to have at least 2 competent guys on the outside that have to be matched up with corners and maybe even doubled. If you have a threat that needs a safety over the top, then that opens up him with one-on-one matchups, which can be very dangerous anywhere in the field, but particularly in the red zone. Without the other guys on the outside last year, it really took that away. And then plus he was injured, so you really never got to see what he was all capable of. But I think in the first game you guys had against Temple, who was horrible, but you saw how important of a piece he was going to be for you guys offensively. But again, the injuries and then just a lack of production on the outside with the other guys really took away what he was good at.
Are you surprised that Burke stayed at
Yes,
Oklahoma?
I
I think
was, because I've been hearing some things that that he was maybe felt that his injury may have been a little bit mismanaged or misdiagnosed by the training staff. And usually when those things happen, it just leads to players just not wanting to be around anymore. We've seen that in the college level and even on the pro level when players have issues with the training staff. So yeah,
Well,
I was surprised.
I mean, that was a common theme with all the receivers was injuries and then how they were managed, how they were being treated, what the situation was. I got to tell you, I'm surprised too. I made it very clear that I thought you could see a wholesale replacement at the wide receiver spot, and really all wide receiver slot, even tight end, which we saw with Bauer Sharp, just because it was so bad. It was so dysfunctional. It was so bad. None of it would surprise me. And you, as an OU fan, I don't think you could have been. You shouldn't be panicky. You shouldn't have panicked then, and you shouldn't be panicking now about who you have, because it's just so radically different. When I look at Jaden Gibson, he was projected to be a starter last year. We've seen he's in his 4th year now, so you think the maturity level's there. The physical gifts are there, and then Satania has proven productivity in the SEC, right? A number 2
Coming from
receiver out of Arkansas.
Yes.
What did y'all play against Satania? Did Texas play against Satania last year?
Yes, yeah, we played him. I'm not sure. Let me pull up the box score from that.
Hey, look,
I don't know if he had a huge impact. I mean, Texas was pretty good defensively last year, so they had the one receiver, and I can't remember his name. He was good. He gave us a little bit of trouble. Let me see what Satania did though. Score was 20-10 with that game, and I'm looking at the box score here. Satania 2 for 24 in that game against Texas. For the season, he had 37 catches, 491 yards, and a touchdown. So solid production.
It's not
It's
eye-popping.
Yeah.
It's a good 2 or 3 in the SEC. 500 yards. Yeah. You'd like to see the touchdown numbers up a little bit. Those aren't Texas-like receivers over the last 2 years, second man production. But in a, but Arkansas had some explosive games, and then they had some real duds of games. They were a very weird team in and of themselves.
Very inconsistent team, especially offensively. Yeah, Taylor Green, we see the talent there, right? You see the size and stuff, and they had some talented runners too, but just never really seemed to put it all together.
I mean, they put a tremendous amount of yards and points against Oklahoma State, only to lose to a team that would eventually go winless in the Big 12. And then you go against Texas and throw up 10 points. So you're really not sure what was going on there. I like that he is, though, SEC has been in the fray. His backup, according to our lads, is Javonte Gibson, also coming from the state of Arkansas. Originally, ready for this, he played at Arkansas Monticello, where my son actually went to school and played golf, which is a D2 school. Then he played at Arkansas Pine Bluff, which was lower level D1. People love what they're seeing in terms of measurables. Is Arkansas Pine Bluff to the SEC, though? I mean, the growing pains have to be, the expectations, I guess, should be incredibly low, right?
I mean, you never know, right? We've seen guys make the jump before from that level at certain positions and be successful. I mean, I think of someone like, and this is kind of rare, but like a Jared Verse at Florida State, different position, but he was an edge guy coming from Albany. And then he comes up and he's a stud. He's a first-round pick. Right. So we'll have to see. It's going to be a big jump. It's going to be, how is he doing? I don't know if you've heard anything. How is he looking in practice going up against y'all secondary?
Good. All indications are good. And again, it's a measurable type situation and that sort of deal. people love what Arbuckle's doing with the wide receiver core. Teddy Lehman reported that you can tell how much more emphasis is on the passing game, which it had nowhere to go but up. But I guess Arbuckle's big deal is crossing patterns, shallow crosses, mid crosses, deep crosses, which then open up the post and open up streaks up the middle when when defenses are concentrating on the crossing routes, hoping to get linebackers out of position and safeties out of position. So it clearly has some air raid principles in it. It can't hurt. None of it can hurt compared to what we had last year. And I'll tell you what makes me nervous, though, is that the slot, the backup for Deion Burks is Jacob Jordan and Zion Reagans. Look, Jacob Jordan was a nice story last year because we had no other nice stories on the offensive side of the ball. I don't want to see Jacob Jordan getting reps at Oklahoma. I just don't.
That. Yeah, shout out to the kid. Nothing against the kid personally, but
no,
I understand that.
Listen, dude, and he did a good job last year. But okay, what are we talking about, right? It's Oklahoma. Yeah. The kid is not an Oklahoma. He does not need to be a contributor at Oklahoma. He's not going to be the next Drake Stoops.
Yeah,
he's just not.
You wouldn't think so.
And then along with that is Zion Reagans.
Think so.
Along with that is Zion Reagans. I just wasn't impressed last year.
He's the guy you shouldn't have had to rely on. Same with Jacob Jordan. You shouldn't have to rely on that. Now, if one of those guys can elevate and then surprise you, it's like, oh, this guy's actually really good. We can't keep him off the field. That's one thing, but you shouldn't be in a position where you have to rely on a Zion Reagans.
Okay.
Let me ask you about 152-pound freshman receiver last year.
Let me ask you specifically about Reagans and Carry-On, okay? Is it possible that the offensive plan and system and development and execution was so piss poor last year that Ivan Carry-On and Zion Reagans might actually be good players and we just have no idea? Is that possible?
Yeah, it's possible.
Are they what they are? Are they what they are?
Scholarship guys. They're scholarship guys, right? It's not like they're, Jordan's a walk-on, but Carry-On is a scholarship guy. He had offers. Could have gone to Texas Tech. He could have gone to other places. Same with Zion Reagans. He's out of Georgia. He had options. So no, you brought these guys in for a reason. You just shouldn't have had to rely on them as true freshmen. These are guys who are projecting to be players further down the line, not impact guys as a true freshman. So things were so bad, you were forced to put these guys in positions that honestly they weren't ready to be in yet. So it's unfortunate for them to kind of get thrown into the mix so soon.
Well, I look at this last year going into the season, and you think about all the players we had: Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson, Andrell Anthony. The list goes on with who we had, and I was thinking, my goodness, we could have a top 3 receiving core in the SEC. Of course, we know how that ended up. I want to be a lot more cautious with this group, both out of superstition and out of reality, which is, I think, Jaden Gibson, Deion Burks, Isaiah Esitania, Giovanni Gibson, Keontez Lewis coming out of UCLA and Wisconsin. I think they give us an opportunity to be more productive offensively, and even put our defense in better positions for the whole team to be successful.
Comparing this to the guys we had out there last year, it's night and day. Now, are these guys going to be what you need to ultimately be successful in the SEC like you hope you can be? That's what remains to be seen, right? Because these guys are all unproven, at least at the SEC level.
Real quick, I think the dark horse in all of this is Josiah Martin, the transfer out of Cal. Mm-hmm. I know he was recruited to OU when he was in high school, and I think he's going to be a really sweet player. So I hope to see him kind of emerge and put himself in a position where he's competing. Let me ask you this, okay? I asked you about what Mateer would have done last year versus this year and all this and all this. Is Mateer and the receivers as we've laid them out, is that an opportunity? Is there an opportunity to get to 9 wins with what you see here on the offensive side of the ball?
I don't
Are you
know, man.
still hesitant?
I'm still hesitant there because with the schedule that you guys have, it's going to be tough. Someone's going to have to really elevate and become that dude, because there's some talent there and there's some potential ability there, but someone's going to have to elevate and become that dude.
Here's the
Who's going to basically, can somebody become Matthew Golden?
Well, I agree with you, because you think back to Oklahoma's really good teams, and it was a Hollywood Brown, or a D.D. Westbrook, or a C.D. Lamb, or a Sterling Shepard, or a Ryan Broyles, or a Mark Clayton. Right? It's like, do I see any of those? I guess the closest, Burks and Jaden Gibson. Burks because we've seen it before, and Gibson because the potential's there. I just don't see anybody stepping up and being.
Yeah, someone's going to have to.
I don't think anybody on this list is a top 4 receiver in the SEC.
Oh, completely agree.
That's my concern. However, I retract back to what we said, which is we were turnovers away from an 8-5 season, right? Whether it be Tennessee or Ole Miss or South Carolina or Missouri, there were opportunities lost and we were atrocious, Kevin, atrocious.
Yeah.
Now with Mateer and a capable receiving core, knock on all sorts of wood, I think I'm not going as far as, undefeated and all this stuff, but I think there's a path towards 9 wins.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's out of the question. I'm not saying it's out of the question. Right? You have good players. You should have a really good defense this year. Right? The defensive line should be really good, and you also have depth there. I think you'll be good at linebacker because Brent Venables is your defensive coordinator. So
yeah,
I always pencil in his defenses as having good linebacker play.
Kip Lewis has a chance to be the best linebacker in the league. He really does. I don't think that's an overstatement.
He's good. He's got a lot of talent, and again, he's got a great linebackers coach. I'd imagine you guys have some questions about the secondary corner, perhaps.
I think, without having done my research, I think the biggest one is this Gentry Williams coming back, and if he is back, how effective he's going to be. I think the guy had, at least a couple years ago, had probably the potential to be our best corner, and maybe even the most pro-likely corner on the team, just from a measurable standpoint. We know what Eli Bowen can do at corner.
He's very good, man.
Jacoby has the size, but there were some vulnerabilities last year, specifically in that Missouri game. He got exposed a little bit in that Missouri game. Now, Missouri had 2 really good receivers, but it was a backup quarterback. They had no business, especially at that point in the game. But Jacoby, we know what he can do, and we don't know if that's good enough or not. Who am I missing? Oh, gosh, who's the other corner?
I mean, you've
Gentry,
got
Jacoby.
Eli.
My mind's gone blank. Anyway, my point is, I think there's questions, but not to the extent that I have on the offensive side of the ball. But yes, questions are still there.
At safety, is Peyton Bowen ready to replace Billy Bowman?
Well,
the talent's there.
First of all, I think yes. I think he can do it. And then playing next to Spears Jennings really helps that, because Spears Jennings might be the new Billy Bowman, in terms of playmaking ability and hard-hitting ability. And then let's not forget, we do get Kendall Dolby back. Now, gruesome injury. You don't know how people bounce back. I like Kendall Dolby a lot, and I like the season he was having. So I still think that there's chances there. And then there's going to be some young guys that I haven't gotten all the way down into the woods yet. But anyway, as far as the receivers go, cautiously optimistic. I want to see where the star comes from. Like you said, who is the star? Who's the go-to? who does John Mateer find to be his best friend on the team that when all else fails, I throw it to Jaden Gibson, or when all else fails, I throw it to Satania or whatever. Like, we've got to know that. For Dylan Gabriel a couple years ago, it was Andrell Anthony. He was leading the team through the Texas game. And then he gets hurt in the Texas game. And you saw a difference in that offense, especially at Kansas and Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And you wonder, now I don't think OU was going to win the national championship this year, but I think they could have played for a Big 12 championship against Texas again. I don't know what would have happened.
Obviously, for sure.
The first matchup came down, to a last decade. Yes. But there could have been an opportunity where we played for one, and I think Andrell Anthony made a big difference. All right, speaking of the other side of the Red River rivalry, Texas. Sark has been there since 2021. His first full class, Kevin, was in 2022, where he recruited 28 players. He had 28 commitments. Of those 28, 16 have transferred, okay? And then 3 have left early in a good way. Kelvin Banks among those. That leaves 9 players from his original full cycle recruiting class. I want to get your feel, and I want to thank InsideTexas.com for this list. They put this together, but I want to get your thoughts on, are these guys going to forever just be role bit players, roster fillers at Texas, or do we have an opportunity to see some flashes of maybe why they were recruited 3 years ago? Okay, I'm just going to start at the top of the list, and then you give your thoughts. DJ Campbell, offensive line.
Multi-year starter at guard. He's been solid, but he has not at this point played up to his 5-star ranking.
Oh, he was a 5-star. Okay.
He was. Yeah. So he's been a little inconsistent, which is why he's still there. Right. Had he lived up to the 5-star status, he'd probably be preparing for the NFL draft like Kelvin Banks is. But I mean, he's a for sure starter. And we're hoping that he elevates and really shows his talent on a consistent basis, which he hasn't done so far.
Real quick, just a side note as I go through this list. Of the 9 that are left, 5 of them are offensive linemen. Here's the deal. I hate Steve Sarkisian, Kevin. I think he's a little oily, and I think him and his wife are very odd people, and that's a very weird relationship, okay? And yes, I'm getting personal, but that doesn't matter. He's a weirdo. However, when you look at the way he constructs his roster, it's inside out. It's old school. To think that out of 28 players, 5 of his offensive linemen are still here, plus 1 or 2 that left early.
Yeah.
That's how you build a run. Nothing's changed. You build it with the offensive line, and then everything else kind of flows around it.
Correct.
And I hate to see it. This was not how Tom Herman recruited, okay? This isn't how Charlie Strong recruited. I like those
It's certainly not how Tom Herman recruited.
I like those recruiting classes a hell of a lot better for Oklahoma fan than I do these recruiting classes. I'm looking at it here going, offensive line. Okay, so the next one. And you can comment on that. But the next guy's Neto Imazua, offensive line.
Yeah, Neto, we're waiting on that light to turn on. He has a chance to start this year with all the guys that we're losing. So I'm curious to see the reports with him, especially once they really get into the pads and see, because he's got a chance to start. And if it doesn't happen now, I mean, it never will. So again, another talented kid.
Do you remember where he was out of? Are these all Texas guys?
No, Neto, I believe. Oh yeah, Neto's from Allen High School.
Okay.
Yeah, we have his younger brother is an edge who signed with Texas last year. He'll be a redshirt freshman this year. Zena is his name. So look for him to get some playing time this year.
All right, let's stay with the offensive line. Connor Robertson.
Yeah, he has a chance to start either at guard or at center. He's out of Westlake. So he's been in the rotation throughout his career. So again, he's another guy who has a chance to elevate and become a starter. And he cross-trains at guard and at center. So he could be our starting center with us losing Jake Majors, or he can slide in at guard to replace Hayden Connor. who's off to the NFL.
Malik Agbo.
Okay, Ogbo, he's a kid who came out of Washington, 4-star kid. Kind of like the other guys, kind of been on the depth chart, developing. And again, another kid who has a chance to start this year. So we'll see. I told you I've got a lot of questions about this Texas team. I expect them to be good, but this offensive line, how it shapes up, and can these guys elevate is, for me, the biggest question on this entire football team.
Okay. One more offensive line person that committed. Then I'm going to ask you a question about this, but it's Cole Hudson.
Yeah, Cole Hudson is another guy who's been kind of cross-trained throughout his career at center or guard. So he'll be either our starting center or a starting guard.
Okay. It's kind of like a mixed bag, this question I'm going to ask you. So I'm going to try to make it as clear as I can. Are you I went through 5 guys, and you said that all of them have a chance of starting. All of them, are competing and trying to get a starting role. You had a pretty dominant offensive lineman for 3 years. Were these guys simply just behind in the depth chart because of the talent you had? And or B, are they really just not as good? And despite the fact that a lot of these guys are juniors and some of them are even seniors, depending on how it all falls out, are they going to get past? Are they going to get past
seen,
5?
Right? Because, well, some of them already have, right? Well, at least because, like, we've got Trevor Gooseby, who's a younger player, right? He was in, I believe, the class of 2023. I'm gonna pull that up real quick. But he basically, when Kelvin Banks got injured against Texas A&M, he's the one who came in to replace him at left tackle. He also played for him. Yeah, he played outstanding against Texas A&M, especially coming off the bench, right? It's different when you're preparing to be the starter, but when you just get thrown into a game in that environment, he did a really good job. And then played in the SEC championship game against Georgia. Started that game and played well there too. He's going to be our left tackle this year. He's going to be a starting left tackle, and the staff feels really good about that. I feel really good about that too. But he's passed up some of the guys that were in that class, right? So these guys have the most experience. It's hard to tell though because Kelvin Banks, Cam Williams, Hayden Connor, these guys were all older guys too. So we've just had so much depth there that these guys haven't just been able to play. Because you don't really switch out offensive linemen it's not like the defensive line where you're rotating in.
Are you surprised that all 5 of these stayed as long as they did? Or did they sense that they were going to get their chance?
Yeah, I think they sensed that this was probably the best place for them to continue their growth and development and, have that continuity with the same guys and then have a chance to finally play. Yeah. So I'm really glad that they did stick around. So, no, I feel like they'll be given a fair shake to show what they can do.
Okay. Remaining players: Jalen Gilbo, cornerback; Ethan Burke, edge; Will Stone, kicker; Lance St. Louis, deep snapper. So Jalen Gilbo, Ethan Burke.
Okay, Jalen Gilbo is a starter. He played a lot last year. He played in the nickel where Johnny Barron had played. Johnny Barron previously had been our nickel for the last 2 years, but we moved him outside corner, which he ended up winning the Thorpe Award there. Johnny Barron was replaced the nickel by Jalen Gilbo. He did a good job in the nickel. This year, I actually think he's going to play corner, kind of like Barron did last year, switching from nickel to outside corner. And I expect him to have a really good season. I'm not saying he's going to be Johnny Barron because that's just, rarefied air.
Where's he from? Where's he from?
He's from East Texas. Yeah, he's a Texas kid.
And then Ethan Burke, edge.
Yeah, Ethan Burke, edge. He'll be a starter.
Rotational or a starter?
No, he'll be a starter. Simmons. But yeah, exactly. He'll play opposite. But we're pretty deep at edge, which I'm really excited about because it's taken some years to build up to this. But we're deep at edge, so he'll be one of the guys that's out there. But I think he'll be a likely starter on the other side of Colin Simmons.
Will Stone kicker.
He was a guy. Real quick on Ethan Burke, he was a guy.
Yeah.
He was a lacrosse player in high school and was committed to Michigan. He was going to play lacrosse and play some football there at Michigan, but Texas came in a little bit late with the offer, and he ended up flipping and decided to play football at Texas as opposed to playing lacrosse into football at Michigan. So yeah, he's been a good player, and he's just developed physically over the years. So we're hoping he has a big season this upcoming year.
Lacrosse is one of those sports that to people in this part of the country, it is incredibly foreign. It is just
for sure
so off of our radar that somebody would legitimately play lacrosse outside of an Ivy League school that we just can't even sit our
it's so funny when I
around
heard about that. I'm like, oh, they have lacrosse at Westlake. I didn't know that was.
He was out of Westlake, and they had.
He's out of Westlake. Yeah.
Oh God. Oh jeez.
Yeah, him. Okay. You remember Colton Bostic? You know Colton Bostic. He committed to OU for a little bit.
Yes.
Out of Westlake. Yeah. Well, they're on the same defensive line at Westlake.
Did Colton Bostic play lacrosse too?
Not that I know of. If he was, he wasn't like a stud at it like Burke was. He was going to be a lacrosse player at the University of Michigan. So
I think I could have played lacrosse. I think I could kill him.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's a shame William Howard Taft High School didn't offer lacrosse. I think I'd have killed it.
Yeah, they really do that on the East Coast, man. Maryland area, those schools up there, they.
Yeah, but don't you always just immediately think preppy white boy when you think lacrosse?
For sure. Yeah, you think of Duke and
Syracuse
schools.
Yeah. Brown. Yeah, all those schools.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I played lacrosse at Cornell.
Break down your kicker situation for it. Because Will Stone replaced Bert Auburn because Bert Auburn completely fell off the map in terms of confidence and all of that.
He really lost his confidence and cost us big in some games down the stretch. So yeah, they switched to Will Stone in the semifinal game, but they're both still there. Now I don't know if they both were after the spring, but yeah, it's going to be a competition. I personally would like to see them bring in a guy in the portal too, because you just can't mess around with these things. You can't just leave it up to chance. Those things can be the difference in winning a natty and not.
I hate kickers. Not them personally, but just the position in and of itself, because it's thankless. You either make it and that's what you're supposed to do, or you miss it and you're the worst human on earth.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, and Bert Auburn was very, very popular amongst.
Well,
fans.
he had your Texas hair and
Texas hair?
all the that's hair. Called Texas hair. I just called it Texas hair.
The sideshow bob lick. Who else has that?
I don't. It doesn't matter, Kevin. It's what it's called. It's what it's called.
Okay.
That's what. Look it up. Texas hair. Anyway, no.
He makes any of those kicks.
But Bert Auburn made big kicks against Oklahoma in 23.
Yes.
He was making kicks all over the place.
Yes. He makes any one of those kicks against Georgia and we win the SEC. He missed like 3 field goals.
Do you blame Sark for not trotting out Stone earlier against Georgia?
A little bit, yeah. But I think what it is it had to be practiced because he's a left-footed kicker.
Oh yeah, you said that. I remember that.
So it switches up the whole process.
Yeah, you just can't. That's probably that's reasonable.
But again, that and just our weird lack of offense and the biggest games on our schedule last year.
I still contend it's going to be it will be interesting to see how y'all respond with. I mean, this was an offensive line heavy segment.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have a lot of offensive line heavy segments about Texas over the next 2 or 3 months.
It's important. I mean, think about this. Last year when we talked about OU, I thought OU would struggle because of the combination of an inexperienced quarterback with an inexperienced, maybe less than optimal talent offensive line that you had going into last season. And that's exactly what happened. So, yeah, with Texas, you have an inexperienced.
Yeah, but you have a more talented quarterback and your offensive line.
For sure. And I'm not expecting us to struggle but it
could be big time games though.
The championship discussion.
Listen, Ohio State, Georgia,
Week 1,
Oklahoma, A&M, Those four
Florida.
games could be Florida. Those are 5 games where if your offensive line struggles at all, it becomes a
Yes.
very serious ball game very, very quickly.
Very serious. Yes, you can't. Arch cannot be getting hit from the blind side on the road in Florida or in the Cotton Bowl.
God, dude, I would love a highlight
I
of
mean,
Arch getting hit.
and
Like
listen,
when we lit up, was it Phil Simms that we lit up? Who's the one? Did Dusty light up Phil Simms from behind? Is that the highlight we see all the time?
yeah, that you mean what,
How
after
did
he
that
had
not
thrown
get a
the
penalty?
ball?
How did that not get a penalty called?
I know. If that happened, now he'd be ejected.
I love it, dude.
He didn't even have the ball in his
Oh.
hand. He was just standing there. Yeah.
Dude, he didn't have the ball in his hand for like 20 seconds.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
handed it
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, he'd have been.
I love it.
Ejected and probably suspended. Yeah, you can't. There's things you can't do now. And nobody thought it was a big deal then.
I don't think it's a big deal now, Kevin. How about that? I love it.
And who would have thought that we actually like Dusty Dvorak calling our games now?
Who, Texas fan?
Yeah, he's really good, man.
Yeah, no, he's a pro. He's a professional. He's put a lot of work in, to his credit.
Yeah, he does a good job. I mean, for him to call that Clemson game in the playoff,
yeah,
a great job.
He's honed his craft, and he's become a true professional. It's pretty cool to see. Staying with Texas women's basketball, Oklahoma. Side note, just got lit up by UConn. They were never really in the game.
Paige Beckers, man. I mean, UConn is UConn.
Yeah, so whatever. Good season though. Sweet 16 is never a bad season. Texas women's basketball, though,
Aaliyah Chavez coming in too, real quick.
Aaliyah Chavez coming in, and it sounds like Jenny B not going anywhere. So we're gonna be just fine.
Well,
Texas, though.
How do you leave when you have the number 1 recruit in the country coming in?
Texas with the matchup against South Carolina. This is the 4th meeting of the year. Texas is 1-2 on the year. The last one, however, was a 19-point blowout in South Carolina's favor. The game is April 4th, Friday at 6 p.m. What is the feeling around the worst coach in America, Vic Schaefer's offices regarding a matchup with Don Staley?
The worst coach, who's in the Final Four?
I just said it. It's by default. Yeah. It's by default.
Hates her. Well, they knew it was going to be it's going to be a challenge, and they're going to have to play well offensively. That's been their issue when facing South Carolina is, and we've seen this through Texas from them kind of throughout the season. The offense can be a little inconsistent. They are not a shooting team. They're not consistently. They don't shoot a lot of threes. So the ones that you do take, you need to make them, because we all know what South Carolina's about, right? They get after you defensively, and they can beat you offensively in a lot of different ways. They can drive to the basket, they can hit the three. So yeah, it's going to take a really good performance.
No real superstar for South Carolina, though, right? They're just a good team.
Yeah, they're just a really good team. Yeah. And they just done it all. They've been there. Playing the Final Four is nothing for them. As usual.
I thought about your breakdown last week when we were talking about them not being able to shoot the ball effectively from 3-point range. They were playing Tennessee. I want to say it was like 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and they were 2 for 4. Texas was 2 for 4 from the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about, what is this, like 1989? Like, how in the world are you 2 for 4? You should be 2 for 4 in the first 4 minutes of a game, not 2.5, not 2, or not 3 quarters through it. Like that is a little crazy, right? They're so 3-point averse.
We talked about this with the Aaliyah Chavez recruitment, right? I think she liked everything about Texas, but that's probably their offense. With OU's off, you guys are more free flowing and just play a little bit more of a tempo and things like that. So the scheme fit. Of course,
I blame the lack of 3-point shoot. I blame the lack of 3-point shooting on Vic Schaefer, Kevin. How about that?
Fine. We're still in the Final Four.
How about that? That's April 4th, 6 p.m. And the men's side of the Final Four, Florida versus Auburn. The coach for Florida, Todd Golden. They are 34-4. Auburn, led by Bruce Pearl, 32-5. On the other side of the bracket, Houston with Kelvin Sampson, 34-4. Duke with John Shire, 35-3. Is this the best 4 teams collectively to ever be in a Final Four together?
I mean,
All number ones, Kevin.
All number one seed, and with the transfer portal, right? The mid majors, those guys who were
get squeezed
on
out a little
teams
bit.
that would
Squeezed out a little bit.
Yeah, they squeeze out because those guys who are overlooked and who are upsetting the likes of Duke and Kansas, those guys are now playing for Duke and Kansas in the portal, right? So, but so yeah, I think it's fun, and we all like Cinderellas, right? But only up to a point. I think we like the Blue Bloods in the Final Four.
I only want Cinderellas through the Sweet 16.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't need to see Florida Gulf Coast in the Elite Eight. It does nothing.
No, we don't want George Mason in the Final Four.
No, I didn't even want San Diego. You remember like San Diego State a couple years ago making the final?
Yeah,
I don't need that.
No.
I don't care about San Diego State.
No.
You want Florida? Listen, these are great. These games have the potential to be all-timer games. This is big boy basketball, and I mean, these number ones. So many. I picked all 4 of these on my bracket because you looked at the bracket and you said, I can't see it. Maybe Alabama if they got hot.
Yeah.
Who's the kid? Who's the shooter?
Shot off, man.
Is it Sears? Is the kid? Is he the shooter for?
Yeah.
But you're right. They couldn't get and so that was put to rest early, right, by Duke. So my point being is, these teams were by far they were the best 4 all year. They were the best 4 in the tournament. Kelvin Sampson is the best coach of the bunch, and John Shire is not too bad himself. I think he's done a pretty good job taking over for Coach K, clearly getting into the Final Four. Bruce Pearl's kind of over the top. And then Todd Golden, whatever, Florida. I don't know. I have Houston winning it all, playing against Florida. But any one of these, I think is Cooper Flagg's the best player left, though.
He's the best player. Yeah, he's the best player in the tournament. Yeah, he's the best player in the Final Four, for sure.
Jay Billis said that Cooper Flagg is better at Duke than Jason Tatum was at Duke. Agree or disagree?
Oh, 100% agree.
He can't be that good in the pros, though, can he?
I don't know if he'll be as good as Jason Tatum in the pros, but at Duke, yeah. Yeah, he's had a better season then.
But here's the deal, man. Listen, Kelvin Sampson has seen a ton of ball and has played against some great players and has schemed up some stuff against some great players. I'm not putting it past Houston that they can't ferociously defend Duke and turn this into a slugfest.
They can. I believe they
but
can.
They're going to have to shoot too. They got to shoot. They've got to be really, really close to 50% from threes to beat Duke.
They lit it up.
Duke is going to put up. Duke is going to put up a high volume of shots, and so it makes the percentages just a tad skewed. Houston's going to have to reciprocate with, to your point, kind of the same thing, make the threes they put up, right?
Yeah, and the cool thing about this year, this tournament, and what the transfer portal has done is these teams kind of seem like the teams that we used to watch in the 90s, where you have the combination of talent and experience.
Yes.
And that's why this is so good to watch. Because sometimes when you get these teams that have, like some of the Kentucky teams, right? You have 3 NBA guys on the team, but when they got into these moments, they just didn't know how to handle it. They were just they didn't have the experience. But now you have the combination of, if you look at Duke, you've got a Cooper Flagg, but you've got older guys too who have played and been through things. So, and you see this with all 4 of these teams, right? These kids are not nervous at all in these moments, and it's fun to see.
You've got so prior to NIL and transfer, you had Gonzaga being able to compete at a very high level because they were keeping guys 4 and 5 years.
Yeah.
You had Butler competing at a high level because they were keeping guys 4 and 5 years. And so it would be grown men playing basketball against uber talented, very young men.
Yeah.
And it was always created interesting matchups, which usually over the last 10 years, 15 years, the older guys were winning their fair share, if not more. But to your point, now these old heads that are really, really good college basketball players are taking the money and going. I don't think it's the end of the world, though. People want to complain. I don't know that I'm complaining about it. This is really good basketball. You're seeing a high level of basketball.
It is. Yeah, and it squeezes out the mid-majors, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is, right?
Dude, none of us want to watch the mid-majors. Stop it. This isn't.
No,
You know what
not
this
at
isn't?
this
This
point.
isn't a mid-major podcast, Kevin. You know why? Because nobody cares. They care about blue bloods. They care about Oklahoma and little brother Texas playing football every year. That's what they care about. Has Texas ever been referred to as little brother? Probably not. Probably not.
I don't think so. No.
Probably not.
Even with you, you guys clearly have the better football history, but
That's correct.
brother.
Let's close this out here with best memories of the Final Four. What's memories or stories? What do you think about when you think about the Final Four in basketball?
I mean, obviously, we'll start with, Texas making the Final Four in 2003, obviously losing to Syracuse, a loaded team with Carmelo Anthony and just a McNamara kid, Hakeem Ward. Just how good Carmelo Anthony was.
Jim Boeheim's only national title.
First and only national championship. And I went back and just watched some of the highlights just this week. And Carmelo Anthony was unbelievable, man. It was just crazy how good he was to be the best player in college basketball. And we've seen freshmen be the best player in college basketball. We saw it with Kevin Durant and seen it with other guys. But for him to lead a team like that to the national championship, he was the best player on the team. He was so good in that Texas game. It was a really good, experienced Texas team with TJ Ford. And Texas couldn't handle him at all. So, so starting there, right? We always start with our own. I know OU making the Final Four with Hollis Price. But, I think about, some of the Duke, Michigan, UNLV type, those moments. North Carolina and Villanova a few years ago.
Yeah.
That's probably Duke and who was it? It was Butler. With Gordon Hayward missing the half-court shot. Chris Webber's timeout. Just how unfortunate that was in '93. So, yeah, man, so many fun memories.
I think about one of the best performances I ever saw was Jalen Suggs with Gonzaga in 21.
Yeah, hitting that buzzer beater. Yeah.
But his performance up through that was just, he played a hell of a game. Man. It was so good.
We talked about that. You talked about Gonzaga keeping guys. So you have experienced guys like a Drew Timme, 4-year guy, really good player. And then you have a freshman with insane athleticism like a Jalen Suggs. And when you have those combinations, that's when you get to the national championship game. Right?
I still can't believe Gonzaga's ever won one.
Me neither. It was just looking like the Adam Morrison team that lost to UCLA kind of had that meltdown at the end of that game. And the teams with Drew Timme and having guys like Suggs and Chet Holmgren and just never been able to get over the top. Shows you how difficult it is.
On the OU side, the Buddy Hield Final Four team, I think, was the best team Oklahoma's gotten there since '88. We'll talk about '88 here in a second. But the Buddy Hield team was the best team, I think. I think they were the best team that year. And they run up against a Villanova team that shoots 73% from the field in the first half.
Yeah. They couldn't.
And you're just, I don't even know what our shooting percentage was, but it's just really, really hard to do 73.
Yeah.
Exactly. But man, I wanted that for them so bad. That they were such a good team. Buddy Hield, player of the year that year. I mean, when he started at OU, he was just a dude. And he was marginal at best, And to the level of improvement that he had, talk about a player that stayed 4 years, the level of improvement he had over 4 years to become one of the great shooters all time in college basketball.
Yeah.
And still in the pros, is just an assassin when it comes to shooting the ball. That was a really good team. Of course, the first one I remember is the 1988 team. And they were so good. I'm only 9 years old, 10 years old. They beat a tremendous Arizona team that had Sean Elliott. Steve Kerr was on that team in the Final Four to get to play Kansas again. It's like the third or fourth time they played Kansas. They had no reason losing that game, and they lost 88-84.
I mean, we've never seen we've seen a team less talented besides Danny Manning, of course.
Yeah, no,
It was not a
no.
really good team besides him.
Oh, it sucked, man. As a little kid, it was my first taste of devastation. It really was because the
Yeah.
anticipation was Oklahoma was going to win. They were the best team.
Yeah.
Oklahoma. I'm sure I've said this before. Oklahoma. It's not UNLV. It's not Duke. It's not Georgetown. It's not North Carolina. It's Oklahoma had the most wins in the decade of the 80s. Most
That's
wins.
wild. That's crazy to think about.
And then no national championship win. They should have got it that year. Of course, Billy Tubbs is a legend, just a legend. Just a couple other ones, just to remind you of how cool the NCAA tournament can be. 1979, Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson in the finals. Are you kidding me?
A precursor of
Are
things
you
to come,
kidding me, Kevin? It's unbelievable.
Dream matchup.
1982.
Yeah.
Jordan
North
with the
Carolina,
game winner.
Georgetown. Yeah.
Iconic. And then I had to mention Bill Walton. Rest in peace, Bill Walton. Last year passed away. 1973, 44 points on 21 and 22 shooting.
This is ridiculous. What are we even talking about here?
These moments, look, they've defined so much of our sporting life, the Final Four. And I'm looking forward to this year. I think this could be a really, really good year. I hope they give us some of those electric
Real
moments.
quick, we had UConn winning back-to-back before this year. First team to do that since Florida. Those teams, man, with Billy Donovan as head coach, Joakim Noah, and Al Horford, Corey Brewer. Really good teams, man. Yeah. Some awesome teams. Yeah, just how good those teams were. You're talking about the Villanova beating Oklahoma in 2016. And we didn't know at the time, but, they had Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Ryan what's his name? Arcidiacono. Remember him?
Yeah. Yep. No,
And then
I remember
Mikal Bridges, Arcidiacono. And then Mikal Bridges coming off the bench. It's 4 NBA guys on that Villanova team. So just some real talented players.
OU only had Buddy.
Yeah, some good
went to the
basketball
league,
players,
right?
but only one NBA
Yeah,
guy.
Isaiah Cousins was a really good guard. Spangler was on that team. Good college guys.
Yeah, really good college players. Christian James coming off the bench. Remember him? But
he was a nice player.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, that was a very good team. That was a really, really good team. Of course, we had the Hollis Price team, which I can't believe they lost to Indiana. Ugh. That was what's his name was the coach, the one that replaced Bobby Knight. Oh, the black guy, what's his name?
Yeah.
He ended up not being very good as a coach. They ended up firing him. I don't know. There's been some disappointment for OU fans and Texas fans in the Final Four, but
that's our only appearance was that one. Rick Barnes made a couple more Elite Eights.
This is only your girl's second appearance since 1986.
Yeah. It's just hard, man.
I would have
blue bloods.
Oklahoma's had 3 Final Four appearances. The girls have had 3 Final Four appearances under Sherry Cole. I can't believe Texas has not done that, especially again with Texas' recruiting base. It's sometimes the sports that y'all haven't had historic success in, which isn't very many, granted, but surprised me. Like I would think girls basketball, you'd have really good teams.
Yeah,
but
I just pulled up that Indiana and OU box score from. It's just kind of crazy, and this happens right in sports. Sometimes your best players get to that game and they just have a horrible shooting game for whatever reason. They might not even be nervous. Hollis Price, 1 of 11.
Yep.
This guy's an All-American. Quantus White, 0 for 5. Aaron McGee was solid, 8 for 15, 22 points. Man, I haven't thought about that name in a while.
Ra. I watched that game in the break room at Kohl's in Moore, Oklahoma. I was working that night, and I was working with my boss at the time, Ron Hayes, and him and I just pretty much sat in the break room the whole night and watched the game. And it just, I don't know. Real quick, before we close this out, shout out to the Oklahoma City Thunder. 29-1 against the East, breaking the all-time record for records against any single conference. Do you know whose record they broke?
I do
know
not.
whose record they broke? Jeffrey Whitson broke this news to me today. The 1970-71 Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I think he averaged like 32 points a game that season, along with, don't forget, the Big O. Can you imagine a team with the Big O?
No.
I don't care. Look,
it's not
you could drop Oscar Robertson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 2025, and they would probably be one of the top 3 teams in the league.
Yes, correct.
Those two are transcendent players. Some games, I think, travel and don't travel and whatever, and maybe they would have been okay. But not those two. Those two were basketball players.
Yeah,
at any level.
It doesn't matter. Any level. Put them in their studs.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you think just because he's a weird dude, he just doesn't get the credit he deserves?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Because we think Bill Russell's a better center than him, right? Do you think Bill Russell's a better center? You think Wilt's a better center?
No, not Wilt.
So you're saying not Wilt. You're saying Kareem better than Wilt.
Kareem over Wilt. Yeah.
I think you're probably right. I mean, God, he won 6 titles.
Yeah.
1 with the Bucks and 5 with the Lakers.
Didn't he win 5 MVPs as well? Or 6?
Yes, he won 5.
Yeah.
He's better than Wilt, right?
I think so. But dude,
better than Shaq?
Yes. Kareem over Shaq for me.
So does that make Kareem the best center of all time behind Bill Russell?
I think it's an argument between those two. If you put Kareem over Bill Russell, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
No, I don't think I don't think it's blasphemy to put Kareem over Bill Russell. But Bill Russell literally won titles every time he played, won an NCAA title and an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
And stood up for social justice and didn't make it weird like Kareem did.
Yeah, man. Bill Russell, just a Hall of Fame guy.
I'm watching Celtics. I was watching Celtic City, and I still remain just completely flummoxed how he won an NBA title as a player coach.
Yeah.
He calls timeout as the player, goes over, draws the play up, and then comes back in and beats Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain and Elgin Baylor in the finals in 1969. I mean, what are we talking? He's a player coach. I don't know if it's ever. When's the last time we had a player coach? Wes Unseld, was he a player coach?
Was he? I have no idea. You know, all this stuff happened before you and I were even born. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, player coaches in the NBA. This is Wikipedia. Yeah, we know Bill Russell. Let's see here. Lenny Wilkins. Remember old Lenny Wilkins?
Yeah, was it Seattle? I don't know if it says.
Yeah, Seattle and Portland.
Okay.
Bill Russell, of course. Dave DeBusschere. It says Bob Cousy with the Cincinnati Royals. I didn't realize that.
Interesting. Hard to imagine playing anywhere else but Boston.
Yeah, that is weird. I'd have lost money on that bet. Bob Pettit with the Hawks. I mean, these were all back in the day.
Yeah.
I think Russell might have been Dave Cowens with the Boston Celtics. But they weren't very good back then. They weren't winning no titles, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think
70s.
Bill Russell won in 68 and 69.
Yeah, and they kind of fell off until they got Bird, right?
Yeah, no, very much so. The 70s were not a good decade for the Celtics.
Yeah.
I haven't got to the point where they start talking about Larry Bird yet. I will be tuned in. It might already be on. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was this week's episode. Bill Simmons was saying I listened to his podcast and he was talking about it.
I don't know how they're going to come up with new Larry Bird stories.
I'm sure there's stuff out there, man. You start digging, especially him with the connection he has.
But the old Larry Bird stories are so good that it doesn't matter.
No, yeah, you can recycle those same ones, and there's still going to be a lot of people. There's purists like us that are going to love to hear it, and then there's just going to be newer, younger fans who are going to be hearing it for the first time and be like, what was this dude about?
Oh my gosh, dude. I don't even, just so, whether it's Sean Kemp or Xavier McDaniel or the game against the Hawks, are going left-handed for one whole game and scoring like 30 left-handed. Shooting his free throws left-handed.
Makes any sense.
Go.
Be that good and be the best trash talker ever.
Imagine just trolling somebody to the point where you shoot the ball left-handed in the entire game.
Correct.
What are we doing?
In a game, yeah, in an NBA game.
In an NBA game. Yeah. Where back in the day, where if they got so mad at you, they could just push you to the ground and nobody even seemed to care.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I love Larry. Give me Larry Bird stories all day long. We don't have to. This always turns into how much I love Larry Bird podcast. This might as well be the Larry Bird podcast as much as I love Larry Bird. But it's not. It's OU Texas football podcast. I thought we got pretty deep in some OU Texas stuff today, Kevin.
That's how it should be, man. That's why people are listening.
Listen, yes. I thought we got very deep. I'm cautiously optimistic about the offense. I'm very fired up about Mateer. I think he has the potential to be a top 3 SEC quarterback, but a lot of it depends on the dudes around him, which we broke down. I hope if they can step up, he can be a top 3 quarterback. If he's a top 3 quarterback in the SEC, we win 9 games and are knocking on the door to the playoff. Tell me I'm wrong.
I won't.
Okay. Enjoy the Final Four. Enjoy the women's Final Four on Friday. I guess we've got some weather coming in the Oklahoma City area, which just blows my mind. I don't even know. I will be in Kansas City freezing my soccer balls off as I watch kids play soccer this weekend, but that's okay. I love it. Don't want to be anywhere else. And hopefully get this golf tournament rescheduled and the girls get another shot at infamy. Kevin, have a great rest of your day. Boomer!
Okay.